I'd like to thank the Knights of Columbus Council from Seward, and I happen to be the newly elected Grand Knight, and I forget the council number, but co-sponsor of this event, council number 11381 in Seward, Pennsylvania. So we want to thank Council 11381 for sponsoring this Fortnight for Freedom event that has been called for by the United States Catholic Bishops. And I'd like to thank Kim Boddicker and her team for hosting the dinner aspect of the event. Thank you, Kim, very much. We really appreciate it. And Harold Smiter is here, the financial secretary from the council. So thank you, Harold, for all the support and help that you give to the Knights of Columbus in standing up for religious freedom. So we're going to sing a song and then move on with our speakers. And I'm going to do a song that I had done earlier. It's a very simple echo song in honor of our Blessed Mother, and it's called Hail Holy Queen. Basically, you would just echo with me, or echo after. Hail Holy Queen, Hail Holy Queen, Hail Mother of Mercy, Hail Mother of Mercy, Hail our light, Hail our light, our sweetness, our hope, our sweetness, our hope. To thee do we cry, to thee do we cry. Banished children of Eve, banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sons, to thee do we sigh. In this valley of tears, in this valley of tears, turn them most gracious advocate, turn them most gracious advocate. Thine eyes of mercy towards us, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, after this our exile, show unto us Jesus, show unto us Jesus, who is 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 Jesus, the fruit of life, the fruit of life, and most gracious advocate, and most gracious advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, after this our exile, show unto us Jesus, unto us Jesus, proclaiming all of thee, proclaiming all of thee, O sweet Virgin, O sweet Virgin, make us worthy, make us worthy of the blessings of His, of the blessings of So I'm just so excited to be here. This is like amazing to be here in this place tonight, today. And the history here is just incredible. Those of us who were at one time part of this parish, when it was once a parish, the memories that we've had here, meeting upstairs, just this lovely little country church. And but those days are over, and then we went through the period of the Spirit and Life Center, which Father Tim, one of our speakers, was actively part of trying to get this place used for the community and to bring the light of Christ and the Blessed Mother to this town of Oliver, to continue a Catholic presence here in this town. And so things have continued and progressed, and now Kim Boddicker has taken over the property and has a beautiful flower shop upstairs, serves wonderful meals downstairs, and has just been nothing but opening her heart, her home here for people to come and to gather as a community. So we're just thankful to be here and, recognizing that, things are not, we're not the boss, basically. And we would like things to be a certain way, and we would like things to go a certain way. And yet, so many times it just doesn't happen the way that, we want things to happen, or we even feel God wants things to happen. So that's going to be the story of our earthly life, unfortunately, because whenever you're dealing with more than just yourself, you need cooperation. And if you don't have cooperation, things eventually, just fall apart. God put us on this earth to work together. That's what the Knights of Columbus are all about. It was about families helping families, fellow Knights helping fellow Knights, families, Catholic families. And so we as Knights of Columbus are trying. We're going to do everything we can to bring community spirit evangelization back into the area here, which has taken a hit on a lot of levels. The high school closed, which was very devastating to a lot of people. The 2 missionary parishes closed here, things of that nature. So it was very difficult for a lot of people to deal with everything that has happened here. Yet, God's truth continues to march on. And we had a rally out at the park today, beautiful park, looking at the mountains and the hills. And we had Pastor Adam Stump, United Methodist Church, was here today. We're working together. As the Pope Francis said, we're united by an ecumenism of blood right now. So we all have a common enemy, known as ISIS, basically. They are clearly predators on humanity because they will kill people because they don't conform to their beliefs. So if America can't wake up and recognize that this group of individuals would like nothing more than to take over this country and put it under Sharia law and everything that we've ever stood for or worked for, freedom-wise, is going to be thrown out the window. And you won't have a choice where to go to church. You won't have a choice who to worship. You won't have a choice, what to do in your day. I mean, they pretty much dictate everything. And to think that, that can never happen to America, I think we're just kidding ourselves, because as we turn away from God, that's what the Israelites did. And they never imagined Babylon would take over Israel, destroy their temple, exile them, to Babylon. And that happened. They were God's chosen people. So if it happened to God's chosen people because they turned their hearts and their minds against God, it can happen to us. We can't cure ourselves. So one of the blessings, one of the tremendous, most important blessings that we have is the gift of our Blessed Mother. And Jesus has given Mary to us to help us through these difficult, turbulent times as our Lady of all nations. And I'm just so thankful to her that we have Mary as our inspiration and as our soldier. And she's such a bold, powerful woman who is righteous and virtuous and loving and caring. And what an inspiration for us to have our Blessed Mother here, holding our hand, literally. Not babying us. She doesn't baby us. She does not baby us. She is the refuge of sinners, so she welcomes us. But she doesn't baby us. She wants us to be strong evangelists for her Son. And that's what the messages are always saying. You have been chosen to be my apostles. So it's quite an honor to be called by our Blessed Mother, to work for her, to do the work of evangelization in her name for her son. And as I explained last week, we were at the abortion clinic and these prostitutes were talking. I said, listen, he said, what about Mary? Do you get and I don't get? And I said, well, it's very simple. Jesus is number one. Mary is number two. And all of us fall behind both of them. So we follow Mary and she follows Jesus. But she's clearly number two. And she's cool with being number two. No one loved Jesus more than the Blessed Mother. She was with him at the beginning to the very end. So we're honored to have this beautiful image of Mary that was just recently painted that has so much meaning and significance. And we're honored tonight to have an artist who is a beautiful sister in the Lord who's with us. She's feeding the homeless with us and out to the worship clinic with us, and just a great lady who has she was a channel for this painting to come. So Lisa's going to share with us a little bit about the meaning of the painting that she did, and then she can introduce Father Tim if that's okay. Okay, Lisa, go ahead. Thank you.
I titled the painting Triumph of the United Hearts. And I found this prayer that kind of explains the meaning. There's a lot of different meanings to this. There are a lot of different meanings in this painting. And I just tried to take part of it because there were too many different topics that I could talk about. But this prayer kind of summarizes it. The heart is the spiritual center of man's soul. Jesus has loved us with a human heart, and his heart is still burning with love for us. To show us the greatness of his love, he wished his heart to be pierced with a lance, and he showed it to us as a striking image of his love. Almighty and eternal God, you willed that your only begotten Son should be pierced by the soldier's lance as he hung upon the cross, so that from his open heart might be poured out upon us streams of mercy and grace. Grant that the heart of your Son, ever burning with love for us, may inflame our hearts with love for him, and enkindle in us a true love for others. Thus the hearts of all men, united amongst themselves by their mutual love, will be united within the heart of your Son by their love for him. There are key figures in this image who work together in unity for God to accomplish his plan of salvation and to do his will. Jesus is symbolized by the Sacred Heart, and it's united to Mary's Immaculate Heart. The Holy Spirit and the Blessed Mother and the priest, who symbolizes the church and the sacraments, and then the children of God are over here on the right, or the left, my right. The spiritual battle is between all of them and Satan, the seven-headed dragon of Revelations, and his demons, who totally oppose God's will and kill and destroy all that is good. This spiritual battle is an obvious reality right now and becomes more and more obvious every day. We see it in ISIS, global abortion, human trafficking, the redefinition of marriage, etc. And we must wake up to this reality. I totally believe as Jesus was born into the world the first time through the Blessed Mother by the power of the Holy Spirit, that he also in his second coming is coming through the Blessed Mother and the Holy Spirit. she has been urging us for many centuries in her apparitions to return to God, and she always leads us to her son Jesus. And she's always asking us to pray and to turn to God and repent, and we need to listen to her instructions because she knows a lot more than we know. So, her heart is joined in love with his heart. And in Fatima, she said, in the end, my immaculate heart will triumph. And this triumph will take place when the love of the Sacred Heart of Jesus reigns in our hearts. Another part of this painting, I was reading a book called The Flame of Love, and it's a diary that was dictated to Elizabeth Kimmelman in the 60s by Jesus and Our Lady. And she was asked by them to take a candle and take her messages to 12 priests in Budapest, and then they would spread it to everyone, and then those people would spread it to other people. And what it was the candle being lit and spread to others was a symbol of the love of Jesus in our hearts being given to everyone in need. And that's why the candle is there with Jesus' Sacred Heart. And she was given two prayers by Jesus and Mary. And the one, the Blessed Mother asked her to say after the Hail Mary. And that was, please spread the flame from your Immaculate Heart's flame of love over all humanity, now and in the hour of our death. And the other prayer was given to her by Jesus, and it was, may our feet journey together, may our hands gather in unity, may our hearts beat in unison, may our souls be in harmony, may our thoughts be as one, may our ears listen to the silence together, may our glances profoundly penetrate each other, may our lips pray together to gain mercy from the Eternal Father. Amen. And that pretty much sums it up. Did anybody see other things in the painting that?
Is that the beast that has
Yeah, that's the red dragon with 7 heads.
that's one of the painting was like devastating after the fire. But the other side was depression, right?
Well, where the devil is, there's no fruit or light, in the trees. It's just dark. And that's one thing I forgot to mention was whenever the love of Jesus is in our hearts, it decreases Satan's power, it blinds Satan, and that's why his eyes are black. It's kind of symbolizing.
And the flame of love.
Flame of love, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Well, please pray, because we want to bring Lisa's gifts to this area of community and open up a religious spiritual gift shop called Blessings in the New Florence area. And so we want to have good spiritual art there and just a center of renewal and work with Kim down here and continue to evangelize. We've got to evangelize, basically, while we still have time. Because when the Lord stops it, boom, that'll be it. Too late for apologies, too late to, should have done this, I should have done that. So we can't worry about numbers right now, because even Jesus said, he said, when I return, will I find any faith left on the earth? So it's not about numbers. Even Jesus himself said, will I find faith left? It's hard for people to hold on to the faith in these days. Like Pastor Adam said earlier, Christianity is not, in America, the popular thing to be anymore. This is like becoming a post-Christian country. And, what are you going to do? gay marriage, I have nothing against gay people, but gay marriage is working against the pro-life movement because it's saying that men don't need women, women don't need men, basically. And marriage doesn't need children. And that's totally against the very first thing God said, be fruitful and multiply. So it's like a movement against children. We don't want more human beings. There's too many people in the world. There's not enough food to go around. So that's what's going on, is this pressure. The only children we want are planned children who can be, one or two children per family. That's it. China is here because the average number of families, children, I think it's less than one. But it's bad. It's really, really bad in this country. So, anyway, Harold Snyder, one of our, he's working hard for the Knights of Columbus to really revitalize our council. So, he's a model. He's a role model for me. Just somebody who continues to give and give and give and give. So I just want to take this moment to just honor my friend, Harold Snyder, who, just in this community is just amazing. He's just absolutely amazing. So can we give Harold a... He's very humble too. So anyway, it is my honor to introduce Pastor Timothy Kruthaupt, who just received his first pastorate as a Catholic priest, which is very exciting. The problem is it's all the way in Fayette County, which is way too far for us. So we sort of lose, unfortunately. But people there will gain a loving servant of Mary and Jesus. So Father always has something to say for our country and for the Constitution and for America and for life. So we're honored to have our keynote speaker tonight is Father Timothy, Pastor Kruthaupt.
I'm an administrator, not Before I begin what I want to address this evening, I wanted to share with you the work. It's really small, because it's just on my phone, that Lisa has done. This amazing gift of art that has just come to life. I wasn't aware of it before. So she sends me an image of Jesus in the Sacred Heart, image of Teresa of Avila, beautiful image of Jesus, image of Padre Pio, image of St. John Paul II, and this other one of Faustina is phenomenal, very gifted, and the good Lord will enable you to do much with your art to further His purpose and spread the good news. I had a difficult day that I was experiencing, and I was on the phone with somebody, and it wasn't a good conversation. And as soon as I ended the conversation, up popped the image that Lisa had drawn of the Sacred Heart out of my text messages, which was impossible in that way. Allow yourself to be a powerful instrument in His love in the midst of His people and accomplish great things with your artistic talents that He's given you. So, yes.
You weren't here when John was here. He said that he said a prayer a long time ago that he could sing. And I heard him tell that story a couple years ago. So I said a prayer that, and I even have it in my journal, it was like a PS at the bottom, that I could do some artwork to glorify God. And now it's happening because
It's coming to life.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So, what I'd like to speak about is this period known as the Fortnight for Freedom that the U.S. bishops established in 2012. And of course, that was an immediate response to the Health and Human Services mandate that every organization that employed individuals in excess of 50 employees would be forced to provide abortifacients and various types of contraceptives, and violating the faith of a large number of Christian Church being the largest, was immediately impacted. And there have been a large number of lawsuits. Our own diocese has, at the district court level, won a lawsuit that stayed the order of the Health and Human Services mandate that wouldn't be applied. But our Justice Department has since then appealed that decision, and it's pending again. So ultimately, it might be overturned where we get a positive decision. Right now, one of our schools down in Fayette County, actually our only school still in Fayette County, I think they have a couple. St. John the Evangelist Regional School has filed a lawsuit against Health and Human Services, our federal government, as has our Catholic Charities in our diocese filed a lawsuit because those mandates are being imposed on them also. And it's so important that we recognize the need as a people of faith to not be afraid to stand up for the principles and values that inform our faith. Because we recognize, particularly in this country that we celebrate this weekend with the 4th of July, that our founding documents, whether it's the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, have firmly embedded in them the Judeo-Christian principles that inform the Jewish faith and inform all Christian denominations. And we must be willing, in this time of challenges, to stand up and boldly proclaim the truth. Because as Representative Krieger said before he left this afternoon, that unless we do, then our freedoms, our religious freedoms that we value so dearly, will be lost. And it's absolutely imperative that people of faith are not afraid, and I'll speak of that here shortly, but that we step out in faith. Now both Tom and Lisa referenced ISIS, and they represent an active persecution of Christians. They would not only take the property and the freedom, but also the very life of someone who will not deny their Christian faith. They will literally take your life. We, in our nation, unfortunately, are not quite subject to that degree of persecution as of yet. It's more of a gentle, tender hand, but things are changing dramatically. And as Cardinal George said prior to his death, he said, I believe that as a cardinal, this Archdiocese of Chicago, I'll die in my bed. I believe my successor will die in prison, and I believe his successor will die a martyr. Now, whether his words will prove to be prophetic or not, time will tell. But we have an opportunity in the interim to stand up, to work through the members of our legislature, whether they be on the state level, such as Representative Krieger, or with the federal government, our reps, and the members of the U.S. Senate, to try to hold back. Now, this recent decision that was made that established a right, as it emanating from our Constitution, for same-sex marriage, is allegedly based on the writing of all 9 of the justices, not to in any way impose or interfere with the right to religious liberty for those who are faithful adherents to their respective faith and live their lives. Allegedly, the First Amendment and religious freedom that's ingrained in that will withstand any attacks. But we know, looking at recent cases and how so powerfully over the last 10 years this issue of gay marriage has made a 180-degree turn. 10 years ago, there were states all passing constitutional amendments saying that marriage consists of a relationship between one man and one woman. Now they say, and who they are, I'm not sure, probably somebody with a political agenda, that the majority of the people in our country favor same-sex marriage. But to show you how quickly that group their political agenda moves as a result of one victory to the next. Just since the decision of the Supreme Court 2 weeks ago, there has been a case filed in Montana, filed by a gentleman by the name of Nathan Collier. He said that he was inspired by that recent Supreme Court decision to file this lawsuit because he wants to have two wives. And he believes that polygamy, so long as we can have marriage between people of the same sex, that polygamy should also be permitted. Now, what's occurring, folks, in case you didn't notice, we're talking pagan times. We're talking before the revelation of Jesus Christ and the establishment of Christianity, that you had multiple wives, that you had extensive homosexual relationships. And that's what we are in. We are in basically a post-Christian era. Paganism is beginning to dominate. So Mr. Collier filed his suit, and he said basically that his desire for this polygamous union would be well received by the court based on this decision that was made. And he's in a county, as I said, in Montana, and the county clerk in Yellowstone County and their chief civil litigator told the Associated Press that he was reviewing Montana's bigamy laws and expected to send a formal response to Mr. Collier by next week as to whether he will be granted a marriage license for both of his wives. We're talking a lawsuit filed within less than a week after the decision that was made that wants to expand beyond same-sex marriage to polygamous relationships. In the state of Georgia, a young man who had been an instructor at a Catholic school was relieved of his position last year at the end of May in 2014. They did not permit him to sign the contract for the upcoming school year because he had announced that he was that summer going to enter into a same-sex marriage. So the school, with the support of the school president and pastors in the area, said that you will not be permitted to teach here because you are directly violating a teaching of the Catholic Church, and as a teacher in a Catholic school, you must adhere to the teachings of our church. He filed a suit on July the 2nd, and he said basically that the Catholic school's commitment to upholding Catholic teachings on marriage is discriminatory toward homosexual employees. Now, the individual who wrote this article, his position was, well, a Catholic school exists for the very purpose of teaching the faith and forming young people in God. The implication is that our religion itself, which is rooted in love and true concern for the good of the person and the common good, is discriminatory because it upholds standards of morality and the natural law. Think of what we're saying here, folks. Within a relatively short time, this decision that, as I said, all the justices said will not be able to trump our religious liberty rights. Suddenly, the lawsuits are filing, and all it takes is one judge to agree that indeed, because of that decision, polygamy should be legal, or individuals who teach in a Catholic school or who work for Catholic charities or for a diocese cannot be relieved of their position because it would be discriminatory while they are in positions of authority that are viewed by the Catholic population as having some position where they can impose, in effect, their beliefs on the general public. This is extraordinarily important for us to understand. According to this gentleman's suit involving the school in Georgia, he said that the school acted with malice or reckless indifference to his federally protected rights. He now seeks back pay, reinstatement to his job, compensation for emotional pain, suffering, and attorney's fees. Now, some people will say, well, you are overreacting. paid attention to the media recently, the decision that was made in the state of Oregon, that family that operated a bakery and who refused to bake a cake for a same-sex marriage to women who were being married, there's a $135,000 fine that's been imposed on them. They've lost their business, they've lost their livelihood because they would not bake a cake. And you know very well.
How can the government tell businesses who they can sell to? I mean, when I had a flower shop, this guy came in who was a stripper, and he wanted flowers made.
His work.
And I told him no. Well, I'm not going to tell her to make something. Like, how can they do that to someone?
That's the issue when it appears to be a direct violation of the First Amendment to our Constitution, where we have freedom of religion and freedom of assembly and association. And the courts, which often are appointed by political parties, in this case, President Obama, they are appointing people who are like-minded, who follow the same ideology that they do. And in an 8-year period, the number of judges appointed by President Obama are going to have a powerful effect throughout our nation as to how the laws are interpreted and how individuals like you're referencing cannot refuse any longer to comply with whatever the whims are of these individuals. And they are whims, and they are consciously attacking on every single level in order to impose their beliefs. It's no longer, please recognize us and permit us to live our lives the way we would like. It is, you must adhere to our beliefs, and you must do whatever we demand is necessary to support.
They're kind of doing what ISIS is doing about the murder.
Yeah, it's the tender
It's
hand.
like you have to do what we want you to do.
Exactly. So there are many threats on the immediate horizon. But what does it mean for us? Now, I don't know how closely you paid attention to the readings today at Mass. Ezekiel, the letter to the Corinthians by St. Paul, and Jesus' experience in his native town of Nazareth. Jesus, who went to his home where we would think we would be celebrated because of the amazing gifts that he demonstrated in word, and he proclaimed that passage from Isaiah. And the many works and miracles that he performed, instead of being pleased, since they knew him, since he was the carpenter's son, Mary's son, and they believed that his relatives were still in their midst, they were offended by him. Now, in Mark's gospel, it doesn't say it, but in the other gospels, they were so offended, they took him to the brow of the hill and would have thrown him off if he hadn't been able to walk through their midst. But he, like us, in the midst of our family, I don't know, guys, I'm going to be able to go on or not. In the midst of our family, in the midst of our friends, when we profess our beliefs, when they don't seem to correspond to what the popular culture, this secular culture we live in now, we will be insulted, we will be persecuted, we will be belittled, and we have to be prepared. So just like the Lord told Ezekiel, I am sending you to a stiff-necked people. I am sending you to a rebellious people. They will not listen to you, but at least they will know that there's been a prophet in their midst. And we must be prophetic. We must be strong. We must be bold in proclaiming the truths of the gospel. And that indeed we are disciples of Jesus Christ, and his teachings, while we don't impose them, must be proclaimed. And in a nation founded, as I said earlier, on those Judeo-Christian principles, must be adhered to by the members of the legislature, by the courts. And unless we stand up and do something about it, we will be
you some things that might not seem directly related, but believe me, it's on the horizon that everything we do and everything we say could ultimately be held against us. The state of Oregon has just established a program where they will be charging people who drive in that state on a per mile basis. You understand what I'm saying? So if you have a car, you live in the state of Oregon, they're going to track the number of miles you drive, and then they're going to charge you a certain amount for each mile that you drive. That's the numbers in here. But the point is, if they're able to track when I drive, where I go, because they put a GPS in my vehicle, and you have such thing as capabilities of the NSA where they actually, if they desire, can listen to your conversations. People that are not criminals say, I don't care, I don't say anything wrong, I don't do anything wrong, why do I care if NSA listens to my conversations? The point is, in this highly regulated society that we live in, whether we realize it or not, there literally are millions of pages of regulations every day. They say approximately 3 different regulations, serious regulations, are violated by each and every one of us. So if they know where I'm going, where I'm associating with other people, what I'm saying, that indeed the liberties that we experience not only on a religious level, but down to our very personal property, our freedoms, and our lives can be at stake. It is time that a people of faith begin to stand up and to speak the truth, because in the short term, not long from now, we will encounter difficulties at a very significant level. There was a poll done this past week by Rasmussen, and to show you how people are becoming more and more aware of this, in that poll, because of the controversial decisions made by the Supreme Court over the last 2 weeks, there is a movement where people are saying, we don't believe that states should have to respond or follow federal court decisions. Let me read this paragraph to you. It says, one of the more disturbing elements is that the voters who now feel strongest about overriding the federal courts are typically Republicans and conservatives who traditionally have been the most supportive of the Constitution and the separation of powers. However, during these years that President Obama has been in office, these voters have become increasingly suspicious and even hostile towards our federal government. And we're talking in advance of over 50% of the people. A plurality of voters continue to believe that the federal government has too much influence over our state governments. They think that states should have the right to opt out of federal government programs, such as the Health and Human Services mandate, that they don't agree with. 61% think that states should have the right to opt out of any federal mandated program if the federal government does not help pay for it. In the Declaration of Independence, the foundational document that Americans honor this 4th of July weekend, it says that government derives its authority from the consent of the government, but only 25% of the people in our nation still believe that that is true today. That's pretty scary for us. Only 25% of the population of our country believes that our government derives its authority from the people as opposed to imposing itself upon us. You think about that. And it wasn't even that high a percentage at the time of our revolution, because those who were the leaders of the revolution maybe represented 20% of the people, and the large percentages were Tories. So significant things are underfoot. Right now in our nation, only 20% consider the federal government as a protector of our individual liberty. 60% see the government as a threat to our individual liberty. So if someone were listening to what I'm saying now, perhaps I'm violating some regulation that I'm not aware of, to be speaking in a public place about issues of this nature. But you and I know that the gifts that we've been given, growing up in this nation, the freedoms that have been entailed as being a citizen here, are slowly being restricted and abridged. The regulations are so broad, they are so profound, so deep, that they limit our ability to do anything. A perfect example, as we've tried to get the Spirit Life off the ground, just a local organization, a township officials, for 1 year, stopped that from occurring. So a process that should have taken 2 weeks and $148.50 for an occupancy permit took over a year and $40,000 in the filing of a federal lawsuit in order to cause them to permit us to have that occupancy. So these things are happening on a daily basis in local areas, in the states, and throughout our nation that we must be aware of. If we are a people of faith, if we truly believe that those Judeo-Christian principles which are espoused and enshrined in our founding documents and were so powerfully expressed by our founders, we must be willing to stand up and, if necessary, sacrifice. You remember what St. Paul said? He said, I have this thorn in my flesh. I have a devil that Satan has taken to subject me to suffering and pain. Now, some people say he had this stigmata. Some of the commentators say it was because of the Judaizers. Every town that he set up a Christian community in, they'd go behind and say, don't listen to him. You must become a Jew before you become a Christian. Some people say it's because he was stoned and left for dead, or beaten 3 times with rods, and scourged, shipwrecked, imprisoned 3 times, and ultimately martyred. That was his thorn in the flesh. It doesn't matter. He came to recognize that in humility, the weakness that he manifested in those circumstances enabled the power of God to work through him. That as an instrument of God's power, not of his own, not seeking recognition, prestige, or authority, but allowing God, Jesus Christ, to work powerfully through him, he would accomplish great things. And we know that he did. Whose epistles we read each Sunday in Mass, St. Paul's letters, because he humbled himself before the Lord. He said yes to the Lord's will, even when that entailed severe suffering, that thorn in the flesh, as he said. And we, as a people of faith, in order to maintain the great gifts that this nation represents, in order to ensure that religious liberty will continue to be the guiding light as enshrined in our First Amendment and enabling you and I to live our lives according to the tenets of our faith as we deem most appropriate, must be supported. And they may need to be supported by the loss of property, maybe our liberty, hopefully not our lives. But that is the state that we're coming to. We need to be aware, we need to step out every day, communicating with the members of the legislature, telling them how important it is, gathering faithful Catholics and people of other Christian denominations in the Jewish faith to powerfully stand up against our rights being usurped by the courts who are making decisions not even based on the laws. And that divide our Senate and the Constitution itself. It's a frightening circumstance, and we, as believers in Jesus Christ, and those inalienable rights expressed so powerfully in our Declaration of Independence and the natural rights that God has imbued each of us with at the time of our creation, must be supported and powerfully expressed.